As I was preparing for this series, I knew I wanted to start with a fly that maybe not everybody had heard of. You've heard of the tire, you've probably heard of the fly, but you maybe not have seen it in action. But I knew it had to be like top tier, cool fly. So we're covering Matt Grajewski's double yard sale. I'm a sucker for a silhouette. So if you don't know Matt Grajewski, he's a fly fisherman from Michigan. He's a dad, a fly designer, muskie extraordinaire, and one of three brothers that have really kind of left a mark on like muskie fly fishing for sure. But not only muskie, like smallmouth and brown trout, and they're just fishy dudes. But what I like about Matt is he's come up with several flies that cover a totally huge range of fish, species, types of water, but I love the way Matt looks at fly design. I absolutely, everything he does is just like, oh, that's cool. And the double yard sail is what really kind of got me just totally in, blindly jumping into the pool for Matt and his flies. I absolutely love this fly. So let's do a deep dive on the double yard sail and everything about this fly. So as I work through this series, I'm going to break the flies down into really three styles. Streamers anyway. Swim flies, jig flies, and maybe a hybrid of both. Matt's double yard sail is most definitely a swim fly. Swim flies being, for the most part, unweighted. They're not going to jig like this. They're actually going to swim and dart and move. Swim flies are where my heart is. I'm just saying. But the double yard sail is definitely a swim fly. This fly comes in at 6.5 inches long on the nose, and it is 0.1 ounces. Like, I'm weighing them. The movement you get out of this fly is a lot of that side-to-side movement that it's going to turn. It kind of wants to walk the dog. It keels itself exceptionally well. A lot of these flat profile flies will have a tendency to want to kind of start to fall on their side a little bit. When this fly does fall on its side, because let's be honest, you want it to get pushed around by the current. You want it to come off a rock and be funky for a second and then fix itself and move right. So when this thing does get off keel, it's battling to come back to keel and then turns. I love watching this thing swim. When we get to materials in a second, I'll really dive in how weight helps it do certain things. But for just the fly style portion of this, a swim fly that keels all by itself is a well-designed and better tied fly. So when it comes to materials in tying this fly, first of all, I did a video of it a couple years ago of how to tie this fly. It is not Matt's video. I did it tying it. I'll link it in the description of this video or put a card up here. The main focus of this, the way I look at it, and Matt may explain it completely differently, but the way I look at it is this thing needs to be more like a jerkbait, like a solid body fly, fairly solid body fly. When he sent me some info on it, he really talks about like the tail feathers and how like a long flowy slop and tail won't do what he wants it to do in this. So basically, instead of having a kick tail or a swimmy tail like schloppen, like on a double deceiver or something like that, instead of the schloppen, he's going to use something more along the lines of like a saddle, like a stiff stem. He's going to use something like a stiff stemmed. That's really hard to say. A stiff stemmed saddle hackle or something along those lines. What that's going to do is instead of the water pushing only on this portion of the fly, it's going to push on the whole thing. That's basically the way I'm looking at it. The harder stemmed feathers will react more, and they just extend the body a little bit more rather than only being a tail. And other than the feathers, everything on here is synthetic. Everything about this fly, except for the feathers, is synthetic. So that's why it flushes water really well. It holds its shape really well. It is weighted. Now let's dive into this just a little bit. When most people think about adding weight to a fly, they think about like putting dumbbells on or wrapping lead around the front part of the hook. And I'm telling you, when it comes to swim flies, that is not what needs to be done. So basically, what we're looking for in a good swim fly is when we strip, okay, we're imparting motion to it through the strip, but we don't care about what the fly is doing during the strip. The magic happens after you strip. So you strip and in between strips, the fly's doing something because you've imparted motion to it, and it's going to keep going until something stops it. It's one of Newton's laws. I don't know if it was a Newton law or not. I think it was, but you get it. But when you add weight to the tail, what that's going to do is create more energy back here. So when you strip, you're going through the strip and it stops. The rear part back here will want to keep moving. So what it's going to do is create a break. So what helps that is a little bit of weight in the rear of this hook. And Matt does it in a cool way. So when you look at how Matt weights this to help the fly break, he puts the weight back here, obviously, but he does it in a way I've never seen before. When I was really looking at this fly and breaking it down, at first I thought there was a loop on the rear hook so you could add more tail, which I thought was kind of cool. This loop right here. But it turns out that loop is lead wire, just like you wrap on your hook. But he puts it on in strips and doubles it over for a loop so it extends a little bit farther back. I thought this was genius. I really, really did. So as you work up the fly, the body, for the most part, the body is flash and slinky, which is a lot. It's a kinky fibered material that the kinky fibers tend to hold their shape better. It takes less material to create the illusion of bulk. And that's great. We love the illusion of bulk. We hate bulk for bulk's sake. All the way up to the head. This thing is all flash and slinky back here. One of the main things about how Matt ties flies that I think I've never seen anybody do it like this. As far as I'm concerned, he's the only one that does this. And it's just taking the extra little care to add different things to a fly, to break up a silhouette, to just give maybe a little bit more of a real or natural impression. He bars flies better than anybody I've ever seen. So if you'll notice, there's black bars on this fly, but then on top of the black is like the metallic Sharpies or something like that just creates more depth. And one thing that I asked him, I was like, do you airbrush this? And then I was like, well, of course you don't airbrush. You just blow it all over the place. But you can tell before he puts the eye on, he creates a black spot and then centers the eye on that black spot. I love this. It makes the eyes pop. The eyes stand out that much more. It just makes it stand out. It takes his flies to a different level. So colorways. This is, I don't know what color this colorway is. I would call it maybe like perch or, something like that. But when it comes to Matt, his colorways, and like I said earlier in the materials portion, his colorways and his attention to detail are really what separates him, I think, from everybody else. I honestly don't know if there's an end to Matt's Colorways. I don't think there are. I know Montana Fly Company produces this fly, and their colorways, I think he's got 6 or 7 colorways there. But when it comes from Matt's bench, I truly think the colorways are endless. He just comes out with all these colorways. It is incredible. He's a mad genius. So one of the questions I get so much, is, well, what are you going to catch with that thing? And I really think that a lot of fly fishermen, maybe newer fly fishermen, think that if you're using a fly this big, you're like fishing for sharks or something like that, which is not the case at all. I would consider the target species for this fly in particular to be, anything from brown trout, but trust me, I've seen him catch brown trout on a yard sale. Brown trout, trout, all bass, stripers, muskie, maybe littler muskie, maybe river muskie, something more along those lines. Pike for sure. Pretty much anything that eats a bait fish, like a 6.5 inch bait fish, which is, pretty cookie cutter size for bait fish. You can target anything that eats bait fish with this fly. And that's pretty much every species on the planet. Okay, so gear. What are you going to use to fish this fly? I think you could get away with fishing this fly on a 6-weight. I really do. There's no weight to it. When it gets wet, it doesn't get water heavy. You could absolutely fish this on a 6-weight. A 7, 8, 9 on up would probably be just a little bit better, but you could totally get away with a 6-weight and up, 100%. Now the line is where things are going to get different. If you're fishing this on a small stream that's not very deep at all, you could get away with a floating line. You could get away with one, but I would urge you to use at least an intermediate line, something that's going to force this fly to get underneath the surface of the water. From an intermediate line all the way to the fastest sinking line in the world, those sinking lines are what's really going to make this shine. I personally think like a T3, a T6, a 3-inch or 6-inch per second line is where the beauty happens with this fly. But like I said, you could totally get away with on smaller streams with an intermediate line, maybe a floating line if that's all you've got. 6, 7, 8 weight. Intermediate to a T9, this fly is going to perform, guaranteed. So some of the key takeaways for the double yard sale. I'm a silhouette guy. I'm a sucker for a silhouette. And I'm telling you, that silhouette is gorgeous. It's just such a good looking silhouette. It gets even better when it's wet. I absolutely love the profile of this fly. The rear loop weight in the rear end, which is not only on this fly, but I think there's another couple flies in the future that we're gonna do of his, and they're on there as well. But that's just a cool thing. I've never seen that rear weighted loop before. It's adding weight to the open air, and that is perfect. That's so cool. And I honestly can't stress the colorways enough. Please go look at his colorways. They are incredible. Absolutely incredible. So again, in the description of this video, you'll see Matt's site where you can go order some flies. I'll link to like different places where you can order from Montana Fly Company or a local fly shop. And he was also a member of the Streamer Chronicles Club that I did a few years ago. So I did an episode of Streamer Chronicles with Matt. I'll link it in the description as well, so you can get some of this information from Matt himself. I was so excited to kick off the Beneath the Surface series with the double yard sale, and yeah, I absolutely love it. So good. So thanks for watching this kickoff episode of Beneath the Surface. This is going to be a great series. It's going to be a really long running series. I've already got dozens of different patterns that I'm going to be going through here, with more coming in as we speak. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you'll know when these episodes come out. And all episodes of everything I do comes out. So subscribe to the channel, click that little bell, and it'll let you know as soon as I drop the video. You'll be like the first to know. So stay tuned for the next episode where we're going over Russ Madden's Supernatural Peanut. Isn't that thing gnarly?